If you don't know how to start on your art journal, then Oxide sprays are the way to go. So today I'm going to demonstrate how I like to create backgrounds, and I will show you step by step what you can do to start with. I'm working on my watercolor paper journal, and as a first step you need to choose two colors of Oxide sprays. Now I went with Aged Mahogany and Vintage Photo. These are two colors that are very close to each other, and I'm going for a very muted background, but you can choose your favorite two colors and just go to town. Randomly spray all over the pages. Make sure that you cover up pretty much everything unless you want to embrace some blank spaces. And then let it dry on its own or just use your heat gun. One thing that you need to keep in mind is that whatever you see at this stage is not going to look as it is once it dries. Remember that oxide sprays give you that chalky finished look, which is very, very muted. You will see how it's going to look. Also, if you want to contain the mess, you can definitely do the spraying inside the box, like I did on the art journal video that I did last week. So here is how it looks after it is dry. And I want to show you how the pages are so thick that no ink has gone through the page on the other side. So anyway, I'm going to clean up my table and let's move on and do some steps to make this background look more interesting. So once you apply two colors of oxide inks on top of your page, then the next step that you can do is to grab a stencil and with a baby wipe off and lift some color from the background. The baby wipe is wet and it reacts with the oxide ink that is on the page, giving you lovely patterns and color variations. You will also find that as it dries, the color variation is even more visible. So I'm going to move on to the next step, and then what you can do is grab some stamps. For that, you can grab either stamps that give you patterns or even stamps that give you text. I love both, so I'm going to combine both of them here. I'm stamping with permanent black ink, which makes sure that it's not going to smudge or smear whatever I do on top of it. And at this stage, I don't know where my focal points are going to be, so I'm just stamping here and there, making sure that I avoid perfect stamping. I want everything to look kind of organic. And I'm creating kind of clusters of stamping. So here I switch to another stamp that gives me text, and again, without using a stamping block, I'm just stamping here and there. Now, one thing that you need to keep in mind is that I'm showing you steps that you can easily do at home with your oxides and whatever other supplies you have. However, for this video today, I will be using products from the latest collection of Stamperia designed by my friend Farrell Taylor, which is called Hidden Grove. So, it is a lovely collection. You will see in a minute what I'm talking about, but I'm explaining everything in terms of steps, so you can easily recreate what I'm doing with what you have. So here all I did was ink up the edges. I started with a brown color, and now with a black color, I'm going all the way to the edge. This is going to create a darker border, which I find that it always makes the page look more finished. It gives kind of a frame, like a vignette, I would say, especially since this background looks kind of vintage today. I also want to ask you to excuse my voice today. I have kind of an issue with my throat, but anyway, I can just go ahead and explain what I'm doing here. So I grabbed another stencil. This one has lots of text, and I'm going with texture paste over it. I'm going with black texture paste here. And I decided to do the stenciling only on the two opposite corners. Now, you can definitely go randomly and add even more if you like. Again, for this background, I did two stencils in different ways. One with a baby wipe to lift color, and now with a paste to add dimension. So that is again another step that you can do on your background, which gives lovely interest. Now, because I love splatters, I'm going to do some thin black splatters here. For that, I diluted a blob of black acrylic paint with water, and I just added a few all over my page. So here's how my background is looking at the moment. I am going to leave that aside to dry. Before that, I'm going to add some water, just splattering all over the place. This is not going to show as it shows at the moment. Again, it's going to be more subtle. So I'm going to leave that background aside to dry, and let's work on the focal points. So the inspiration for today comes from the Hidden Grove. This is a lovely collection, and you can see here the paper pad. You can cut out any images that you like, but I fell in love the moment I saw the frog. So this is going to be my focal point, and as I browse through the pages, I can find him in different sizes. You can definitely go ahead and fuzzy cut him. You can use the ephemera or the die cuts. I think you can find him there as well. I'm going to grab some extra elements. If you hate fuzzy cutting, then maybe you want to go with the ephemera. So here are some of them, and the frog, which I'm going to use. And then there are also the die cuts. The die cuts give you again lots of images that you can play with, but they are kind of thick. However, just below the top if I want to work with them on top of my journal. And then, of course, there are the paper cutouts that you can just pop out, and these are the exact same thickness as the pattern paper. So you see the frog is all over the place. Just pick which one you like. I'm going with the ephemera one because I want to avoid fuzzy cutting today. And then from the die cuts as well as from the paper cutouts, I'm going to use some of the gears, I'm going to use some of the leaves. I'm just picking bits and pieces to create my composition. And again, at this stage, you should have a lovely background following the steps that I showed you. So just go ahead and grab any of the scrapbooking collections that you have, maybe a magazine, and cut out images that you want to put together to create your composition. It doesn't have to be what I am using. So here I want to create a cluster, that's why I cut out this pattern paper. I'm going to tear it off because I want to have some rough edges, and all I'm going to do is to just layer those one on top of the other, which is going to give me an interesting background for the frog to stay on top. So I'm going to ink up the edges, and for that I'm using Vintage Photo. You can use the brown that you used for the background. You can even use black. We did use black on the background as well to do the edging. So anything works here, and what I'm doing here is actually gathering all the elements that I want to use to create my composition. So here I'm working with this net. Everyone is asking me what that is, but this is something super simple that you can find. It is just drywall tape. It is self-adhesive, so all you need to do is to just rough up the edges, make it look more organic, and stick it down. Then on top of it, this is how it was. I'm just switching things up to make it look more interesting instead of just sticking down a rectangle. And then the frog is going to go on top. Now, when you are working on 2 pages like I'm doing here for your art journal, a good idea is to repeat some of the elements on both pages. So you see here I do have the same background, of course, but I do have the stenciling on both corners of the pages, and now I'm introducing that drywall tape on both the pages again. So everything comes together and they look coherent as a project. You don't want to work only on one page and leave the other one completely empty. So I'm sticking down the 2 pieces of pattern paper, and then the frog is going to go on top. However, I don't want him to look like if he's floating, so I'm just using a piece of corrugated cardstock. I'm going to ink it up as well with brown just to make sure that it kind of matches better with the colors that I already have. And this is actually a piece of self-adhesive corrugated cardstock that's by Tim Holtz, but you can definitely use your packaging to tear off some pieces. I'm going to stick it down, and I did add some glue just to make sure that it is going to stay put. Now I feel like there is something in need to add there, and that's why I'm grabbing this black washi tape. I'm going to tear off a piece and stick it down. I feel like it brings everything together better. And then it's time to add the frog on top, so I'm just going to peel off the backing and stick him down. I absolutely love this guy. I think he looks hilarious. Anyway, I am now going to embellish around my cluster. And for that I'm using gears. I am always inking up the edges with black to get rid of that white edge. And now these gears that I'm playing with now are from the die cuts, which means that they are chipboard. So with my poke tool I'm going to separate the top from the bottom to make them thinner. This way I can stick them on top of my page with no issues of creating a bulky journal. So I'm just going to stick it down. For sticking down everything today I'm using just white glue, and I'm being very, very careful as I apply the glue at the back of my elements. Remember that I do have Oxide sprays at the background which will react with whatever wet I add on top. So you always need to take care of, to keep in mind of the attributes of the mediums that you are using on your mixed media pages. If it is distress oxides or distress inks or whatever distress line, then you need to keep in mind they will react with whatever you add on top. And you don't want to make a mess. However, if you want to make sure that no matter what you do on top of it, is not going to react with whatever you have underneath, just go with acrylic paints. Acrylic paints dry permanent and you don't have these issues. However, I have to say that oxides for me are an amazing medium. I absolutely love the muted colors that they give for a background. I also love the chalky fins that they give. Absolutely in love with them. Anyway, I am now going to recreate some of the details on the other page. So you see I'm going to add a little bit of pattern paper on top of that white net that I have, as well as some gears. This way I'm creating clusters that match with the other page. Also notice that the clusters that I am going to create kind of create a triangle because these are always pleasing to the eye. So I have one at the top, one at the bottom, and you do have the other gears on the other side, on the other page. So they do create a triangle. Now I'm going to also add a few of the leaves, and you can find leaves that you can fuzzy cut in the pattern paper. You can take them out of the ephemera pack or the die cut pack. So I'm just going to stick them there, and these why I'm adding them, because they turn the page from being very steampunk into looking more soft steampunk by adding that foliage there. And at the same time I am introducing green on the other side, on the other page. So I do have green on one page because the frog is green, and then on the other I add the leaves. So I feel like it kind of brings everything together, and I felt that that space up there was quite empty. So I'm going to just stick this ladybug because it's so cute, and I also love the pop of color that it adds. Another way to bring all the elements that you glue afterwards on top of your page together is to add a little bit of stamping. Here I'm using the same stamp that I use on the background, and again very lightly I'm adding some organic stamping here and there, not trying to make it look perfect. I'm going to stamp that on the background paper. I also did a little bit of stamping on some of the leaves and some of the gears. Now I will grab my fine black marker and do some sketchy lines here and there, along the frog, along the ladybug, even around some of the leaves, not trying to outline it perfectly, only sketchy lines, and then with my white gel pen I'm going to add some white highlights. Now for my sentiment, for my quote, I went with Kiss Me Quick because why not? He is just adorable. I'm going to give him a heart as well. And then this is how you turn a steampunk page into looking very fun and happy. Although we do have muted colors on the background and gears, we do have the frog who is smiling. We gave him a little friend, the ladybug, as well as a heart to make him even cuter, plus the foliage on the other side and the fun quote, I think brings everything together. Now I'm adding some highlights with my white gel pen. I'm also adding some highlights on the letters, and again I always like to put together my words by die cutting the letters using my favorite alphabet die set. You can definitely write them down, you can print them out, do whatever makes you happy. And I did actually use my label printer. You see here I printed out the phrase with white letters on black background, and I went with print spending just because I want to make my page even more fun. And now let's finish it off. I'm going to do my white splattering. I'm going to cover up his face. I don't want any funny splatters on top of him. And I'm going to add white calligraphy ink all over the place. Again, this is not going to stay as bright as it looks at the moment. It's going to kind of blend where Oxide ink, Oxide spray is underneath. So that was the project for today. I hope that you had fun and that you got inspired. You can see here some close-up photos where you can see the details better. Everything I used can be found down below in the description. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.